I've watched the title so-called American Animals, which apparently is a quote from Charles Darwin's book, which is a bit absurd, but okay. So it's an interesting format. I just watched. I mean, I've watched quite a few. I suppose one could say, um, crime movies before, and they're all fairly straightforward. This, on the other hand, decides to go a roundabout way to depict the movie, in that it's partially a documentary, and that's because yeah, the director is a documentarian. But the other thing he did besides this one is a straightforward, I think, documentary. I haven't watched it, but so it was interesting, the way they depicted it, and how it began, and how it's. And what was interesting also is this, many movies. Obviously, most movies have flashbacks and such, but this had the other thing, the sort of flash forward and such, where they imagine what it could be like, and then they make you think that happened that way, and then they backtrack on that. That was interesting. Uh, and obviously, the commentary by the real life characters. It was interesting in itself. It is a strange sort of movie, of course. It makes for a strange movie, but it made it interesting as well. I suppose, of course, one could say that these people are profiteering from a crime they committed, and that would be a valid sort of. So in a way, this is Scorsese-like, but somehow I thought it was better than what Scorsese does usually, because Scorsese doesn't. I mean, obviously he doesn't do docudramas in this sense, but I mean, even if all or most or whatever of his movies end up, the crime ends up sort of similar in this sense, ends up in a consequence. They don't really show much of the consequence on screen, so nor do they show the victims. Well, obviously he doesn't do documentaries, so that's fine. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, okay, maybe he does show the unraveling process and such, but I don't know. There's just something he doesn't do. So in a way, I like this better than most Scorsese movies. I mean, I still like the likes of Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, at least it didn't have much violence, unlike most other Scorsese films. But still, I mean, it still glamorizes a form of crime in this sense. In this case, financial crime. In that case, uh, whereas this, obviously, this was somewhat in between. It's I mean, it wasn't financial. I mean, it was obviously financially motivated, as most crimes are, but they also partially hurt someone, but not to the extent that people are dead, which happens quite a lot of Scorsese movies. I don't think it happens in Wolf of Wall Street, but yeah. Um, I forgot though. I've seen it years ago. So you know, I suppose one can say it was interesting because of that, because they did actually express remorse. Even the actors themselves in the movie, they did, like when I mean, I'll show the real life version, so mostly expressed it. I mean, I'm not sure if it was actually acted out, but quite remarkable that one of them even cried on camera, as in the real life person who presumably um, initiated the whole thing. But the whole thing was so weird. I mean, it's everything went wrong. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. You know. I mean, first that stamp pen didn't work. Not even sure. I didn't even know such pens existed. But yeah. Then yeah, they epically ended up with the books falling and just somehow leaving them there. Those are some huge books, by the way. Absolutely massive. I had no idea such massive books existed. And obviously, the fact that the film was interspersed with ornithological paintings was quite nice to look at as well. In the sense, obviously, they were trying to steal such a book, so I suppose this makes sense in this case. So yeah, it was interesting everything, but I mean, sure, it's a novel sort of movie, as I say. And I liked it. I mean, you know, I liked it for what it is. It's nothing. I mean, absolutely stupendous, but compared to other crime movies, at any rate, it's slightly above average. Which I'm assuming people still would disagree with. I don't know. But of course, what people seem to like is uh, just guns, right? I mean, that was I think a single gun in this movie, and it wasn't fired. So a lot of gun aficionados would be disappointed. But personally, I'm not sure how well where the correlation is between guns and good films. But it was actually apparently received moderately well by most people, it seems, both critics and viewers alike. Apparently, so it makes sense in this case. So I mean, I agree with the average sort of opinion of this movie. I still do not think maybe it's as good as most people think it is, but then there's not that much difference either. Unlike, say, some, so to say, Scorsese films which are rated ridiculously high, in my opinion. Which I've, in my opinion, is way worse than the average seems to think. Um, so yeah, I mean, even the fact that it was an interesting depiction as a docudrama is, I think, worth it in this sense, I suppose. Yeah, possibly. And by the way, one of the highlights was when they were in the car at the beginning, and they were one of them was asking the other, have you ever wondered why you were born you and such? And then, I mean, that's a profound question in itself, but what's more random than a burning trolley passing by outside of the car? That was a highlight, I think, in my opinion. Yeah. Um. The So I mean, there are some points where this sort of thing happens, which doesn't normally happen in most crime movies. I think usually happens maybe in normal dramas, but most crime movies are focused much more on the crime itself. So as opposed to that, this did happen, and well, I didn't quite understand. That's why at one point they just ditched the disguises. I mean, as far as I know, the disguises are I could possibly use for, I suppose, for such a thing. Um, in the movie itself, there was a bit that was really funny. I think when they were about to leave again because there are more librarians than they thought, and one of them just says randomly, "I think I'm losing a sideburn." There's a slight bit of humor there in an otherwise humorless crime movie, really, I suppose. So ultimately, it's an okay movie, really. I mean, um, apparently I noticed that the first many reviews are most popular that say that it is not too bad. Then so there is still a mixed opinion, but I think most people seem to agree that it's above average considering the 7/10 rating. I I consider it slightly not as good, but it's